So you're thinking about spending your days in the driver's seat of a bulldozer. Huh. Big machines, open air, getting to actually like reshape the world around you. Sounds kind of cool, right?
It's definitely not your average desk job.
Not at all. And that's what we're diving into today. What it really takes to be a bulldozer operator. We've got this awesome guide from RoleCatcher to help us out. It's got all those insider details you wouldn't even think about.
Yeah, it's way more in depth than just like a here's what the job is kind of thing.
Exactly. It's the real deal.
Yeah.
And speaking of the real deal, what's the job market actually look like for bulldozer operators these days? I mean, is it a field that's actually got some legs?
Oh, yeah, it's a good time to be in the field. Lots of demand, particularly with all these infrastructure projects popping up. They need skilled operators to run those bulldozers.
That's reassuring to hear. But I gotta be honest, when I picture a bulldozer operator, my mind kind of goes to like moves dirt. End of story.
Right.
Is that really all there is to it? Because RoleCatcher seems to be saying it's a lot more nuanced.
It definitely is. You're not just moving dirt. It's more like, you're sculpting the earth.
Mm-hmm.
The work you're doing is the base for roads, houses, all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
You need real precision and understanding of the terrain, and you got to know how to handle these massive machines. It's not as simple as it looks.
Sculpting the earth. I like the sound of that. So it's not just brute strength then. There's an art to it.
100%.
Sure.
And honestly, it's gotten really technical these days, too. They're putting GPS systems in bulldozers now, so you're grading a site down to the centimeter.
Get out.
Yeah, it's wild. We're talking serious accuracy here.
Wow, a portfolio for a bulldozer operator. That's not something you hear every day. But it makes sense, showcasing your skills on these intricate projects.
Definitely.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. RoleCatcher doesn't sugarcoat things either. It's not all, fancy tech and perfectly sculpted landscapes. There's got to be a flip side.
Right. Working outside is great fresh air, some nice views sometimes, but you're also dealing with whatever Mother Nature throws at you.
True.
Rain, heat, you name it. You have to be tough and adaptable to handle it.
Okay, so you need to be physically strong, mentally focused, and a tech whiz on top of it all. RoleCatcher's painting a pretty clear picture of what it takes to succeed. But for someone who's just starting out, what are the major pros and cons to consider? Like, what really matters when you're weighing your options?
Well, I know for me, when I'm thinking about trying something new, job security and how much I can make are always up there. And based on what RoleCatcher's saying, those are both looking pretty good for bulldozer operators.
Yeah, you got it. Construction and mining aren't going anywhere. Someone's got to run those projects. And as far as pay goes, RoleCatcher mentions that specializing can really boost your income.
Hold on, really? So you mean like becoming the person to call for a certain type of bulldozer? Demolition or something? Exactly. Or maybe you're the expert in a specific type of bulldozer. The one with those huge tires for like swampy areas.
Oh, yeah.
Building that reputation in a niche
Yeah.
can get you on those more interesting jobs. And let's face it, doing the same thing day in and day out.
Gets old.
Exactly. Finding what you're great at keeps things fresh.
It's like you're leveling up your bulldozer skills, literally. And speaking of leveling up, RoleCatcher talks about the whole career path for this too. You start as an entry level, move up to junior operator, and then there's that, senior operator level everyone wants.
Right.
It's like they laid out a literal roadmap for your career.
And what's really cool is they give examples for each stage, like from people actually doing the job. So you can really get a sense of what your day-to-day would be like, the responsibilities, the pay, all of that.
That's so helpful. I can practically see myself as that entry-level operator. Raring to go, maybe a little nervous, shadowing someone more experienced. Then you get some experience under your belt. You're the junior operator, taking on more, honing those skills.
Yep.
And finally, you hit that senior operator level. You're leading the team, you're the mentor, you're tackling the toughest jobs.
And think about how satisfying that would be. You're not just operating a machine at that point, you're passing on your knowledge. You're shaping the next generation.
That's awesome. But, okay, let's be real. Getting to that senior level doesn't just happen overnight. What does RoleCatcher suggest for someone who wants to climb that ladder?
They're big on continuous learning. So that might mean extra certifications, going to industry workshops, or even just keeping up with the latest and greatest in bulldozer tech.
So you don't just learn it once and you're good.
No way. It's always changing. New tech is popping up all the time. Remember those GPS bulldozers we were talking about?
Yeah.
That's just the start. Imagine operating one of those things remotely with VR.
Whoa!
That's where things are headed. If you want to stay on top, you got to be ready to keep learning.
That's wild. Okay, so you've put in the work, learned all you can, maybe even got a few of those fancy certifications. Now comes the part that trips everyone up the interview. What kind of insider tips does RoleCatcher give to really nail that first impression? The, the, the interview. That's where you go from like maneuvering tons of earth to maneuvering a conversation about your skills, huh? Any secrets from RoleCatcher on how to really stand out?
Well, they say you got to be ready for questions that aren't just about the technical stuff.
Oh, okay.
It's not enough to just, know how to work the bulldozer. They want to see your personality, how you solve problems, that kind of thing.
Makes sense. You're not a robot. You're working with people, right? So what kind of curveball questions are we talking about? Give me an example.
All right, so one they mention is, how do you minimize your environmental impact while operating a bulldozer?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. It's not the first thing that comes to mind, but it's so true. You're out there reshaping the landscape.
Exactly. They want to know you're thinking beyond just getting the job done. Things like erosion, noise pollution, even like how much fuel you're using it all matters.
So you're not just a skilled operator, you're an environmentally conscious one too.
Oh.
Pretty cool. But how do they say you should answer these curveball questions?
They're big on authenticity. Don't just give some canned response. You got to show them you really care about the work.
So know your stuff and be able to talk about it with passion. It sounds like RoleCatcher really has your back through this whole process. Do they have any tools to actually help with the interview stuff?
For sure. Their platform walks you through everything, making your resume stand out, practicing what you're going to say in the interview. They even have this thing that analyzes job descriptions to see if your resume is a good fit.
It's like having your own career coach in your pocket.
Pretty much.
And speaking of putting your best foot forward, RoleCatcher also talks about networking. Now, we touched on that a little earlier, but it still seems kind of strange for a job where you're often by yourself in this massive machine. How does networking even work for a bulldozer operator?
Yeah, you wouldn't think it'd matter much.
Yeah.
But making those connections in the industry can be huge. You never know when someone might tip you off about a big project that's starting up.
Right.
Or maybe a supervisor remembers your work ethic when it's time for promotions. It's all about building those relationships.
So less about schmoozing, more about establishing yourself as someone reliable, skilled, good to work with.
That's the key. And hey, don't forget about learning from others too. Finding a mentor, sharing knowledge, those things matter.
That's a great point. Even with all the heavy machinery, those human connections still make a difference. So it's more than just operating a bulldozer. It's about building a whole career in this field that's always changing. And it sounds like RoleCatcher can be a big help along the way. Well, we've covered a ton today. The skills, the environmental side, career paths, even networking. Before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something to think about. RoleCatcher talks about those networking opportunities. How would you go about building those connections? What are some creative ways to stand out, even in a field with all those bulldozers and excavators? Think about that, and until next time, keep on crushing it.